Yeah, folks, we got some new Hearthstone cards to talk about today, including 2 new Colossals. I actually helped reveal these over on the official Hearthstone stream with some fellow streamers. That was super fun. But up first, we've got Arisen Onyxia, a new 9 mana double blood rune, 3/6 undead dragon, Colossal +2. When your hero would lose health on your turn, gain that much max health instead. Now, the wings here are going to feed into that. When summoned, get a random 2-cost minion. That means add it to hand. It costs health this turn. So at a base level, that means you play Onyxia. You basically get 3 bodies on board already. But then also remember, you can play those 2 drops, and they won't actually cost any mana. They will cost health, which is actually going to be given to you. So that could net you 4 health right away and 2 additional, 2 drops on board. So 5 bodies plus 4 health for 9 mana. At a base, maybe not the most exciting card ever, but remember, these can be heralded. And again, to remind you what herald means, if you play a card with the herald keyword, that's going to summon basically one of these Onyxia's wings earlier in the game. So you might take a little damage then, but you're going to be, tempoing out lots of bodies, potentially just throwing stuff down, feeding your corpses. More importantly, though, upgrading your Onyxia's wings so that eventually these could be 2/2s that give you 4-cost minions, or 4/4s that give you 8-cost minions. At which point, when you summon Arisen Onyxia, you get 2 4/4s alongside her and 2 random 8-drops you can slam down for free that also then heal your hero for 16 health. And that's not just healing, that's max health as well. So like 5 cards on board, 2 of them giant 8/8s potentially, or like whatever 8-cost minions, however big they are. But then also healing for 16. Keep in mind, on top of that, any other effects can also feed into Arisen Onyxia. Like, for instance, if you have a weapon equipped and you hit a giant thing, that is no longer going to be damage that you take. You would not be losing health. You'll be gaining it instead. So you kind of get a free attack. Hit a 10/10. You're going to add another 10 health while potentially clearing a 10/10. Hit a Murazon with infinite attack. And guess what, right? Suddenly infinite max health. So, like, yes, it's expensive at 9 mana, but particularly for like a control Death Knight, like double blood, really leans that direction. I do think this could be kind of a crazy stabilizer late, where it's like, man, I'm building a monster board and I'm healing for like 16 plus health, maybe more with additional support cards leading into that, like weapon equip, maybe you heal 25, whatever, right? Could be some really big swing potential here out of Arisen Onyxia in those scenarios. So I personally think this actually has quite a bit of potential. Yes, faster decks would not be able to get to this point. They might not even be able really to sacrifice all that health on the earlier turns, but a Death Knight that's focused on life gain, that has recovery, that has control, that has stabilization, they're going to be able to use these little bodies along the way to just keep the engine going as you herald, and then you're going to slam that Arisen Onyxia for the big time stabilizer, hopefully. So I think this card actually looks pretty solid. We've also got some herald cards to talk about as well. Oh, and then one other thing I told myself not to forget, and then I forgot anyway, is this card we saw, Forgotten Millennium. Fill your hand with Anima Dead. They cost health instead of mana this turn. This could be another way to kind of boost yourself with Arisen Onyxia. Just keep in mind, you're going to quickly run out of board space, right? You might get like 2 big undead off of this, basically, in the 2 remaining spots, which, could heal another like 20, basically, another extra 20 if there are a couple of big 10 drops or whatever. Could just help add an additional mix here, but you do have to still spend the like 8 mana up front on this. You might not be able to do that even if it's like perfectly on curve. I don't really know that this card helps a lot. I just wanted to talk about it because it's definitely a potential fit. All right, so next up here, the Obsessive Technician. This is 4 mana, 2/5 lifesteal, and Battlecry Herald Onyxia. Again, remember, that's going to summon one of Onyxia's wings effectively as a soldier of Onyxia here with that same sort of effect. That can also again be upgraded up to a 2/2 that gets you a 4, or a 4/4 that gets you an 8. Just do keep in mind, without Onyxia herself on board, those 8 costs are going to be risky to play. You take an 8 damage effectively, might not always be worth it. But I think, this is a solid little feeder card into Onyxia. It's 2 bodies on board for 4. The lifesteal helps recover a little bit of some of the risk here as you're taking damage playing this, but it might actually be 3 bodies on board at a cost of 2 additional health. Sometimes that will certainly be worth it if the 2-drop is impactful or defensive in its own right, or maybe just because you need bodies to trade. So I think the fact that you can kind of get 3 things out of this right away, a little bit of recovery off that life steal, particularly a 2/5 body, kind of annoying enough to deal with. The opponent might have to trade into it. Maybe it heals a little extra here and there. It's nothing you're going to lose your mind over, but it does feel like the kind of thing that fits into an Arisen Onyxia shell where it's like, okay, yeah, I can work with this. It's fine. It's good enough. I need the heralds. Got to hit that critical mass anyway. So this fits in just fine. So our next herald card here is Experimental Animation. This is 6 mana shadow spell. Again, double blood. This one heralds Onyxia, so this will summon you a body. Again, the Soldier of Onyxia, maybe a 1/1, maybe a 2/2, maybe a 4/4, but it's also going to deal 4 damage to all enemy minions. So a bit of a board clear here. It flips the board in your favor. You could kind of end up with your soldier and whatever you got in hand played for free if you like. You know, I like board clears. I am a little bit stressed that it's only 4 damage, specifically by the time you get into turn 6. It does feel like there will be moments that's just not lined up super well against the board. Just so many little 5 health things left around, and it's like, man, I don't know. Do I need to play 2 cards together with this? Like that, it might just fall in a bit of a gap. If this were a 5 mana card, I'd already feel a lot better about it. Although I'm thinking about like Elise everywhere, 5 health already on turn 4, right? There could be some windows where this just feels like you can't really play it. And the one thing about heralds is you do want to play them. You want to make sure they're able to get down and go so that your Onyxia is ready when it's time to hit your Onyxia. So it's a little bit shaky here for me, just because that number is a tad small. You know, at 5, it would be too good. It would just be way better than something like a Flame Strike. So I kind of understand maybe if this hit all minions, it would be a little more fair to make it bigger. But then you've also, I think your soldier would be summoned first, so that would feel kind of weird as well, right? So I kind of understand why it's landing here. It makes numerical sense to me. I get it, but at the same time, that doesn't necessarily make it a great card just because it lines up. From a fairness standpoint, we kind of need things to be unfair a little bit these days to really hit. So I wonder if this one's just a tad too honest. Although again, you know, if Onyxia is worth it, you're gonna have to run a card like this and probably just hope it lines up okay, or maybe just sacrifice a couple things left over here and there because you know you can recover enough. So fine, just not really pushing it and not super exciting. All right, so next up here we got a card that's gonna lead into a little package for Death Knight here that cares about undead buffs in particular, minion buffs, stat buffs, hand buffs, all that. Coming together with the Chromatic Broodmother, a 4 mana 2/5 undead dragon. It's got a frost and unholy rune. It's got rush, and it reads, whenever this attacks, refresh mana crystals equal to this minion's attack, which means with rush, as this gets played on turn 4, very, very often, almost always, will be refreshing 2 mana, kind of making this just cost 2 at the end of the day. Not a card you play on 2, but you know, the net cost is 2, which is actually really nice. Just getting like a 2/5 down, super cheap, get to do something with it. Even just weaving in a hero power on occasion to fill in the gaps is not nothing, but sometimes that'll lead to some nice plays. But also keep in mind, this can be buffed, which is going to take things even further. You know, lots of ways to buff this. Hand buff historically in Death Knight. We also actually got like Imbue Death Knight, don't forget, which buffs undead on board. So this could just get a buff from like the Imbue hero power. I think that's also just a passive, right? Which could refresh a ton of mana. And we're going to see more cards in this video that can also buff the Chromatic Broodmother. So ultimately, this just looks really strong to me. Like a super high tempo, basically a free 2/5 with rush in many cases, and can actually even do more than that. You get to turn 10, you play this with, play another, like, let's say you play a 6-drop out, right? If this has 10 attack, because you've buffed it enough or whatever, you play your remaining 4 mana with this, you attack, you get a whole nother 10 mana back, right? Like you can actually use this to cheat crazy big turns out later in the game too. So I think like fine on curve, upside later, lots of payoff basically for buffs. And we're going to see another card here that pays off some of those buffs as well. So this actually looks like a really interesting package for me. Totally separate, of course, from the Onyxia stuff because that's double blood, but this could be its own deck that's actually rather powerful. Yeah, that next card here is Gruesome Nightmare. This is a really cool hand buff and onboard buff synergy card both. Gruesome Nightmare is a 3/3 Beast for 3, Battle Cry, give a minion in your hand or battlefield attack equal to this minion's attack. So you actually have a choice here. Like, for instance, you could play this on turn 3, give the attack to your Chromatic Brood Mother, which is already amazing. This is now a 5/5 with Rush that refreshes 5 mana, which is actually just like an insane curve, right? Or you can start stacking buffs on your Gruesome Nightmare. So then it can actually chain those buffs onto the next thing as well, including actually another Gruesome Nightmare in hand that can kind of like triple those buffs. So you basically can create a little chain of hand buffs here where you're just kind of stacking buff on buff on buff and then passing them on via the Gruesome Nightmare, whether that's on board to like buff a Chromatic Broodmother or just hit the opponent in the face with your Death Knight hero power. Assuming you have the base hero power, not the imbue, right? Like, that's a charge minion. Remember, get this up to like 10 or 20 and just dome them with your charging hero power. That seems crazy good to me, actually. This seems like it creates some really interesting chains. And the fact that it has that flexibility for both hand and board gives it both like lethality pushes, but also like setup pushes as well. So this looks like a crazy strong 1-2 punch to me. So next up here is the Command Claw. This one kind of feeds into this little package again as well. This is a 2-mana 2/2 weapon, Unholy Rune. After your hero attacks, give a random friendly minion +2 attack. So you kind of load this up on turn 2. Maybe attack, maybe you don't, maybe it sits, but basically going into your turn 4, you can attack and give your Chromatic Broodmother 4 attack instead of 2. That trades in, refreshes. Basically, you got your Chromatic Broodmother for free while also still developing a 4/5 rush minion, which is great. And a 2/2 weapon here is certainly not bad either. So I think this could be set up in the kind of buff package we're looking at. This is also probably just a really good little aggro weapon where you just, you know, in total, you're kind of getting 8 damage out of this thing in many cases. If you get a board down early, some stuff that can attack, sending some extra damage face could really push a lot of aggression out of a single weapon here. So I think it's actually a really solid little tool in a couple directions, whether it's that buff package or aggro. This seems just nice and cheap and puts out some numbers for what it is. All right, so now we're moving over to Demon Hunter, and this Colossal is absolutely insane to me. Like, this scares me beyond belief. This is Ashara Ocean Lord, 8 mana, 8/8 Naga. Colossal +2, your hero has Wind Fury. Already kind of scary, right? Like, you know, I'm thinking about we've got some way, you know, set a weapon up a turn early, set up Chronocar earlier. You know, you could already just like imagine 10-15 damage popping out of this guy. I guess not 15. That would be that's not divisible by 2 cleanly, but you get the idea. But then these tentacles come in and it's even scarier. The Shara's Tentacle, 2/1 Naga, when summoned, give your hero +1 attack this turn. So already at a base, there's 2 of these. That's 2 total attack. That's 4 damage from your hero and a pile of stuff. But of course, keep in mind, those can be doubled and doubled again via Herald, which means they can go up to 2 attack each or 4 attack each. When they get to 4 attack each, that means your hero's going to have 8 attack from Ashara herself, which is 16 damage just off of this card, not including a weapon that you set up earlier, a Chronocar, any other follow-up damage, anything like that. It's absolutely terrifying how much damage and lethality this single card can punch out. I think this is going to be an incredible win condition. You know, it's just like any moment, it's like, oh crap, I got to be ready to take 16 basically off of Ashara, which, you know, it's not a one-hit kill kind of thing, but like it could quickly descend into madness and like makes any other damage a threat. And it's just like any chip damage you take early is going to keep you on your back foot. Not to mention you got to solve the problem on board still. Like, it's not nothing, because remember, the tentacles are also going to scale up. These are going to be 8/4s. So you get 3 8-attack minions and 16 damage. It's like, oh my god, this is a lot of stuff all at once and some scary problems, as long as they're able to play heralds in a way, you know, to get this there in a timely fashion and don't give up the game. Like, if it's not too much opportunity cost to play the heralds, which I don't think it's going to be. We're going to see, of course, some heralds here in just a second, but I think Ashara Ocean Lord looks absolutely terrifyingly good. All right, speaking of those heralds, here's the Armored Bloodletter, a 3-mana 3/1 Naga with Rush and Battlecry Herald Ashara, which means you're going to get that Soldier of Ashara. Those are 2/1s, remember, to base, which is great, and they give your hero +1 attack. So in total, for 3 mana here, you're getting 2 bodies and +1 attack, which I think is actually great. I think basically, you know, the ability to kind of both develop some threatening stuff on board, because it's just like, you know, they got to figure out how to deal with a 3-1 if you're not trading it in. But if you are trading it in, that's great too. Just take a little swing, leave behind a 2-1, and use your one attack to either punch face or clean up something little from the opponent, or fix the math maybe on your armored bloodletter. But like, solid turn 3 play, because you're just getting like 3 things out of it basically. And then as this heralds too, remember, like at some point later in the game, this could just be a way to get like 4 attack for 3 mana along with a rush. So even if you weave this in on turn 6 or something just to up your herald count, 4 attack is not nothing. Or, you know, I guess maybe 2 attack more reasonably if you're still working on your herald count. But it kind of scales with itself relatively well. In other words, you know, getting a 4-2 or an 8-4 out of this for 3 mana is still really nice, and the attack too is really nice. So both, in other words, good on turn 3, but also as you step up the herald chain as well, I think it feels good. Some cards, I don't know if they like scale as well, but for only 3 mana, getting a 4-2 with 2 attack out of your soldier is going to be a lot better at only 3 mana than, say, like the Death Knight card where you had to spend 6 to get a slightly bigger guy. You're like, well, okay, I'm already spending a lot anyway. These extra stats don't feel as efficient, whereas extra stats on a 3-cost guy, that feels super efficient. So I think that makes the Bloodletter look like a really strong piece of the Herald puzzle, which you're going to run because you want to have Ashara as this insane payoff. All right, so next up here is Fel Infusion, the other Herald's card, 2 mana Fel spell. Herald Ashara, and your hero has lifesteal this turn. So this one, I don't think directionally is quite as aligned as the other Herald's card for me. You know, I'm kind of envisioning like you want bodies, you want chip damage, you want to soften up the opponent, keep them on the back foot, and then use Ashara to punch them to death, right? Late in the game once it all lines up. This one's pivoting more a little bit towards like staying alive and control side of things. So like when you play this on turn 2, not exciting. You will do it sometimes, of course, just to get your Herald chain going. You'll get a 2-1 on board with 1 attack. It's not an absolute catastrophe of a play. You get a body and you maybe get to hit something of your opponent's, hit that Righteous Protector or whatever, and get your 2-1 down. Like, you're okay. You know, it didn't suck. You don't really care about the lifesteal yet. There could certainly be moments later in the game where the lifesteal becomes more impactful, whether that's because the soldiers are giving you more attack or you have weapon up, you just need a little recovery or whatever. But it still isn't driving towards that Ashara game plan, other than that you have to be alive to play Ashara. But I hope that's not the primary concern. So in other words, like, you're going to run this, it's going to get played because I think your Ashara is going to be worth it. It's just, you're not usually going to feel as excited about this one as perhaps other ones. But do keep in mind, like, just because this is 2 mana, it does mean if you get to a 10 mana turn, you can then play Ashara and the Fel Infusion together. The extra soldier is still going to give you +4 attacks. Then you'd have 3 soldiers give, or, you know, 2 tentacles and a soldier basically, giving you +4 each. So you'd be at 12, which is 24 damage for your Ashara Ocean Lord. So like, it could kind of still serve as a combo enabler once you get to enough mana, you know, if you're not playing it on curve. So you know, it's fine. I think it's still good. I'm not saying it's bad. I just, you know, it's not quite as aligned perhaps as Armored Bloodletter. Although, you know, despite this having rush, which kind of also makes it look a little bit defensive, it is still just stuff and bodies, which can ultimately be aggressive, and a 3-1 stat line you have left behind can be a little aggressive. So they're kind of thematically connected, but at the same time, I just think Bloodletter's a bit better fit. Same side of things though, like at some stage late in the game, right, spending 2 mana to get an 8-4 that gives your hero +4 attack, still totally going to be worth it, right? Like, you don't care about the lifesteal. Just like, yeah, I got a 2 mana 8-4 and 4 attack, right? So when you think about it that way, you're also like, well, shoot, man, yeah, the heralding upgrades could be really nice on this. So it just kind of depends on how many heralds you're running from like neutral versus the Demon Hunter ones, when these all get played out. So like, sometimes on turn 2, it's going to feel like a weak or mediocre play. Sometimes later in the game, it might still feel like a really powerful and efficient play. So I think just solid, basically good on average. All right, so next up, a couple other Demon Hunter cards here. Flash Flood, 5 mana Fel spell. Deal 5 damage to your opponent's left and rightmost minions. So just hitting the flanks over there. But then Outcast, Do It Again, which means if there are 4 5/5s on board, it's a great way to clean them up. Also, I guess if there are 2 10/10s on board, I think this would also work, right? Would hit 5 and 5 and then 5 and 5 again. So some interesting little ways to line this up in a way that it cleans up opponents' stuff, as long as it's outcasted. I think if it's not outcasted, it's going to be a lot harder to use this one. There will still be moments where there's 2 5/5s and you're okay spending 5 to clear them, but that's not super exciting. I think you really want to get 4 hits out of this to make sure it feels worth it for 5 mana. That said, 5-mana board clears historically for Demon Hunter just haven't really aligned with what the class is all about. You know, it's usually more aggressive. It's usually doing more of its own game plan. It's not historically relied a lot on board clears or AoE type stuff. It's popped in here and there, but it's often like cheaper, doing something spicy or interesting, not like trying to play towards late game and doing stuff in the mid to late game with cards like Flash Flood. So I don't know, this just doesn't have a lot of precedent in the class. I don't really see a controlled Demon Hunter shaping up. I don't really think that's gonna like work for Ashara, for instance. Probably better just playing for your own game plan more directly instead of trying to pivot out. There are some like fell spells and fell synergy stuff that's always floated around too, but I just don't think anything about this card is compelling enough mathematically or like over tuned enough that it's like, you know, a reason to go in that direction. So at best, it kind of feels like a filler to me, and at worst feels kind of unplayable to me. So I think this one's going to fall in the gaps basically for the class and not really stand out as anything really noteworthy or playable. So next up here is Sigil of the Seas, a 1-mana fell spell. At the start of your next turn, summon a 3/3 Naga with Taunt. So another one of these sigils for Demon Hunter returning here. So, I mean, 3/3 for 1 mana, not bad at all. The Taunt is also honestly sometimes rather useful. It might feel like this is a defensively aligned card, but I actually think you can still kind of use this in some more tempo-y or aggressive decks just because, you know, it's efficient. 3/3 for 1 is still a really nice body. Gives you vibes of the kind of Dread Seeds and stuff, right? Where it's kind of dormant for a turn, basically, but those are still useful in decks that tend to go a little bit faster because you just eventually critical mass the opponent down with all of your stuff on board. I also like the idea that you can kind of spend your turn 1 developing a card without it actually getting removed by the opponent at that stage, right? Like it's just kind of popping up and it's there, and it could create some awkwardness where they want to use a cheap removal card early and they can't because they got to save it for later because it's hiding, you know, basically same thing again with sort of dormant cards. So, you know, nothing crazy on this one. I don't think, you know, it's broken or anything, but I think decks will find an excuse to run this. It's just efficient, it's cheap, it weaves in. All that's great for like Outcast, Demon Hunter game plans. I think it's just going to line up and make the cut here and there. Nobody's going to lose their mind on it, but pretty solid card. So our final card here for Demon Hunter going in a little bit of a different direction. Dread Leviathan, a 9-mana 9/6 beast with Taunt and Battlecry. Choose an enemy minion to steal 3 health from 3 times. So I think you get to choose like 3 independent targets there. Could pick it all in one to delete a 9-cost thing, 9 health thing, or, you know, kill 3 3/3s, whatever you like, mix and match, which is nice and flexible and makes this, you know, kind of a weird little board clear that's also going to have at the end of that 15 health. It's not your hero stealing health, it's the minion stealing health. So 15 health, basically. Although I guess if they were too small, it might not be able to steal the full amount. Like if you had a 2 health target, you might end up with less. But up to 15 health, which makes this a 9/15 that kind of clears the board, which is like, man, that's close enough to being like almost good. I'm saying, hey, it's a 9-mana card that's really hard to find play. 9-mana cards have to be crazy broken. And I'm, you know, my instincts tell me this is still not going to get there, but like, man, it's close, right? Because it can clean up stuff. It has enough health. It's got taunt. Like, there's a few things in its direction here where you're almost curious. It's not a demon though. Like, we've got a lot of like big demon support in Demon Hunter. I think if this was a big demon that you could cheat out, that would be the recipe for success here. But as a beast, like, I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if there's a Demon Hunter deck that wants to go deep enough for this sort of card. When you're already killing your opponent with a Shara, do you need this the next turn or whatever, right? So sadly, this is so close to being there, man. I really want to push this into playability status, but I just don't think it's going to get there. 9's still just too prohibitive. Even though this card does do a lot of things right, I'm sure, you know, you'll find this in certain moments discovered or whatever, and it's great. But I think as far as like actually making the cut in your deck, it's just going to be a bit short. So all that said, let's go ahead and rate these cards from 1 to 5 stars. Arisen Onyxia is a 4-star card. Obsessive Technician is a 3-star card. Experimental Animation is a 3-star card. Chromatic Broodmother is a 5-star card. Gruesome Nightmare is a 4-star card. Command Claw is a 4-star card. Ashara Ocean Lord is a 5-star card. Armored Bloodletter is a 4-star card. Fell Infusion is a 3-star card. Flash Flood is a 2-star card. Sigil of the Seas is a 3-star card. Dread Leviathan is a 2-star card. And there you go. Yeah, I think some pretty good stuff this time around. Once again, we have another review here. Cards are looking stronger this set to me, man. you got to see all this stuff in action. I know some of these Colossals are expensive, which makes you nervous, but you know, generally we do have a little bit of a slower meta post rotation because there's just less powerful stuff to stuff in your deck. So I think there will certainly be some windows for these cards. And I mean, the question is like, can Onyxia actually compete against Ashara? That's where you gotta like, wait a minute, like, is it good enough? Because right now Ashara might be the check. Like, hey, I gotta 9 mana is too slow. I gotta get out ahead of Ashara. So I don't know, but they both seem pretty promising in their own ways though. So this card looks really scary strong to me. Share your thoughts on all these down below. Thanks much as always for watching, and until next time, game on.